this unboxing is a picture book that just came out. It's through Keepunumuk Press, and it is a Thanksgiving story from a Native American perspective. And there's three authors, Danielle Greendeer, Anthony Perry, and Alexis Bunten, and they're all Native Americans, I think, from different tribes. I know Anthony Perry because he wrote a really great middle grade, sort of Thanksgiving story, and I believe he's Chickasaw. It's also illustrated by Gary Meeches Sr., who also I believe is Native American. And I think it's really important to have Thanksgiving stories from a Native American perspective, and I don't think there are very many, so I think this makes it a pretty important book for all of us. Okay, so this is the first Thanksgiving, but this is told from a Native perspective. Weeachumun, the wise corn, her sisters beans and squash, and the woodland animals made the newcomers' first harvest and their survival possible. So it also references the three sisters, corn, beans, and squash, which is also, it's a Native American sustainable farming style. And this is about the modern day Wampanoag family. Oh, and so, you know what? I live in Boston, and we learned about the Wampanoags in preschool. And so, yeah, it's great. This is the story of the Wampanoags who would have been living in, I guess, Plymouth, the southern part of Boston. And I do believe that, the Wampanoags also suffered from a lot of diseases that were brought to them by the immigrants from England who colonized their homelands. So in the beginning, you have sort of a prologue, and you get a glossary up front, so that's very helpful. So Keepunumuk is the time of harvest. So Keepunumuk would be the equivalent of Thanksgiving. And so we're learning about, the people and their way of life. And here, this is interesting because Weeachumun, who is corn, and seems to be sort of like a wise woman. And the way she's depicted, it almost feels like she's like a spiritual advisor, or she's there, I don't know, in person or in spirit. Oh, so maybe, I see. Maybe it's the story of corn, squash, and beans through a Native American perspective, but it's really, these three plants embody the Wampanoags, and so they're kind of told from their perspective. That's a really clever way to do this. And since corn, squash, and beans really did represent, their harvest and their way of life. And so here they are talking with the animals. Oh yeah, these were the, in our preschool, we actually built one of these little Weeachumun. Our preschool was had really an extensive curriculum about this. It was pretty awesome. And here is the three sisters guiding the Wampanoags to help these colonizers, because without their help they would have died. And I think in the story that Tony Perry wrote, the pilgrims found like a cache of seed corn, or like maybe seeds, including corn, that the Wampanoags had, you know what I mean, like saved for the harvest, for the planting in the spring. And they badly needed the food, and they took it and they ate it. But in his story, you know, they just treated it as like this found, you know, jackpot they found. But it actually was, you know, not theirs. And there was no compensation for taking what would be very valuable seed corn that they would need to plant. So in the final story, the final pages, you have the three sisters, and now they're, you know, not just spiritual, but like in solid person form. And, you know, I mean, I think it is a story, like Maple says, different from what we learned in school. And it was, you know, this is a story that really honors like what really happened. And it looks like it's done in a pretty non-controversial way, like pretty gently. And here we see Massachusetts. So kind of placing the Wampanoags where they lived and all the other tribes. Like I live in Newton, and we are on the land of the Waban, and Shawmut was where I used to live in the south end of Boston. So it's interesting, like some of the places are marked by either city names or street names. So there is a sense of like, when you finally figure out, okay, this was the land where, you know, different tribes lived, it kind of makes sense, because you're like, oh yeah, I know that name, but I didn't know what it meant before, and now I do. And more about the Wampanoags, a pretty extensive back matter, which is really helpful. And then a recipe. Looks delicious. And here are the real Maple and Quill, who live in Mashpee. Oh, this is awesome. Okay, so more about the authors and the illustrator. So Danielle is Mashpee Wampanoag. Fantastic. So this truly is her, you know, story of her ancestors. And Anthony Perry is Chickasaw. And Chula the Fox is this book I was talking about. It is a fantastic middle grade book. He is a really great writer, very talented. So I was happy to see him as part of this project. And Alexis Bunten, she is Yupik and Anungan. I'm not quite sure where that is. She lives in Monterey, but I'm not quite sure where those areas are. It might be on the map, it might not be. And then Gary Meeches is Anishinaabe. So this is a really great collaboration where you also get, you know, 5 different perspectives. 4 of them, but one of them represents 2 different Native American tribes. I mean, it's quite a collaboration. I think this book is really important, and I hope everyone reads it. It's also very beautifully illustrated as well. So this is new, just out, and I hope you guys, excuse me, will enjoy it as well.